There's a secret your doctor isn't telling you, a secret that could completely change how you see that feeling, consuming you from the inside. You know that feeling. Waking up in the morning and feeling like a heavy fog has settled on your soul during the night. Looking in the mirror and not recognizing who's there anymore. The things that once brought you joy now feel empty, colorless, lifeless. They told you it has a name. They told you it's depression. They told you it needs medication, treatment, a cure. But what if I told you they're all wrong? What if this pain you feel isn't an illness, but a calling? What if this darkness isn't the end, but the beginning of something far greater than you can imagine? Eckhart Tolle discovered this in the most intense way possible. At 29, he was on the brink of suicide. Anxiety and depression consumed him to such an extent that one night lying in his bed he thought, "I can't live with myself anymore." In that phrase, something extraordinary happened. He stopped and asked himself, who is this I that can't live with itself? And who is this self I can't live with? That night Eckhart understood something that would change not only his life, but the lives of millions around the world. He realized there's a fundamental difference between who you really are and that incessant voice in your head that never stops judging, criticizing, and suffering. Have you noticed? That voice that's been with you since forever. It tells you you're not good enough, reminds you of your past mistakes, creates terrifying scenarios about the future, compares you to other people, makes you feel inadequate, lost, purposeless. But here's the revelation that could change everything. That voice isn't you. That voice is what Eckhart calls the ego. It's a mental construct that believes it is you, but is actually just a collection of thoughts, memories, fears, and desires that have accumulated throughout your life. And when you completely identify with that voice, when you believe it is you, that's when suffering arises, because the ego is never satisfied. It always wants more, always fears losing, always struggles against something. Now think with me. When you're in what they call depression, what's really happening? You're over-identified with that voice, lost in the mazes of the mind, completely forgetting who you really are beneath all those thoughts and emotions. And your soul, your true essence, it's trying to call you back, whispering softly, "Come home, come back to who you truly are." But you can't hear that whisper because the ego's voice is screaming too loud. It's like you're an actor who's forgotten their acting, who's gotten so lost in the character that they believe they are that person on stage. And the more you believe in the character, the more you suffer, because the character is never real. The character is always an illusion. Have you had those moments? Rare but powerful. When you look at a sunset, and for a few seconds all that mental chatter stops. When you hear a song that touches you so deeply that you forget all your problems. When you play with a child and suddenly you're completely present in the moment. In those moments you experience who you really are. You experience the peace that exists beyond the mind. You experience your true nature. And in these windows of silence you realize, I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. I am not my fears. Eckhart calls this awakening, and he discovered that what we call depression is often the soul trying to push us toward this awakening. Think of the word depression. It comes from the Latin deprimere, meaning to press down. But what if this downward pressure isn't to destroy you, but to force you to stop, to force you to question, to force you to seek something deeper? It's as if life were a garden and you were a seed. For the seed to germinate, it needs to be buried in the darkness. It needs to go through a period where it seems like nothing is happening, where it seems like everything has died. But it's precisely in that darkness that new life is forming. You're feeling this pressure because your soul is trying to be born, trying to emerge from all the layers of conditioning, expectations, and false identities you've accumulated throughout your life. And the first step to this birth is recognizing that you are not your thoughts. Now close your eyes for a moment. No, really do it. Close your eyes and observe your breath. Just observe. Don't try to change anything. Just be aware of the air entering and leaving. As you observe your breath, notice there's someone observing. There's an awareness that is aware of the breath happening. This observing consciousness, this present awareness. This is you, your true nature. All the thoughts that pass through your mind are like clouds in the sky. They come and go, but the sky remains the same, immense, silent, at peace. This consciousness that you are, this presence, is like the sky. depressive thoughts, heavy emotions, worries. All of this is just passing clouds. You are not the storm. You are the sky that watches the storm pass. But our modern society has taught us exactly the opposite. It has taught us to identify with the clouds, to believe that we are the storm, and when the storm is too intense, they tell us we're sick, that we need to medicate it, that we need to fix it. What if, instead, you simply remembered that you are the sky? Eckhart discovered that depression, in most cases, isn't a chemical imbalance in the brain. It's a spiritual crisis. It's the soul trying to wake you up to who you really are. It's your true essence saying, stop identifying with that voice in your head. Stop believing every thought that arises. Stop taking yourself so seriously. You are far more than you imagine. But how do you do this in practice? How do you get out of this identification with the mind? The answer is simpler than you imagine, but also more challenging than anything you've ever tried to do. The answer is presence. Presence is the act of being completely here, now, without resistance to what is. It's stopping running to the past or to the future. It's stopping resisting the present moment. It's accepting what's happening inside and outside of you without judgment. When you are truly present, the mind can't dominate you, because the mind only exists in time. It needs the past to lament and the future to worry. In the present moment, in the now, the mind is quiet. And in that silence, you remember who you are. But you might be thinking, how can I be present when I feel so bad? How can I accept this pain, this sadness and this emptiness? And here's another secret Eckhart discovered. You don't have to like what you're feeling. You just need to stop resisting it. Resistance is what turns pain into suffering. Pain is inevitable in human life, but suffering is optional. Suffering arises when you resist pain, when you fight against it, when you create stories about why it shouldn't be there, when you stop resisting and simply allow the feeling to be present. Something miraculous happens. The feeling, finding no resistance, naturally dissipate, like a wave that, encountering no wall, simply continues its natural flow. Imagine you're in the ocean and a large wave is coming towards you. If you try to fight the wave, it will knock you down. But if you dive deep and let it pass over you, you remain intact. Emotions are like these waves. When you resist, they knock you down. When you allow, they pass naturally. And there lies the most beautiful paradox of all. When you stop trying to get rid of depression, when you stop fighting against it, when you simply accept it as part of the present moment, it loses its power over you. Because it's no longer an enemy to be fought. It becomes just a temporary visitor in your consciousness. Have you ever noticed how children handle emotions? A child might be crying intensely one minute and laughing the next. They don't carry the emotions. They feel them completely and let them go. We adults create stories about our emotions. I'm sad because, I'm anxious because, I'm depressed because. But what if you stopped creating these stories? What if you simply felt what you're feeling without explanation, without justification, without trying to fix it? What if you said, there is sadness here now, instead of, I am sad? Do you notice the difference? In the first case, you are the observer of the sadness. In the second, you identify with it. This subtle shift in language reflects a profound shift in consciousness. You cease to be the emotion and return to being who you truly are, the consciousness that observes the emotion. And in this space of observation, in this pure consciousness, there is a peace that does not depend on external circumstances, a peace that doesn't need everything to be all right to exist, a peace that is your essential nature. Eckhart calls this peace being. It's what you are when you remove all layers of identity, all labels, all stories. It's what remains when you stop trying to be someone and simply are. And here is the deepest revelation of all. This depression you feel may be the most direct portal to discovering who you really are. Because when everything falls apart, when all your mental strategies fail, when you can no longer maintain the facade, that's when the opportunity arises to find something real. It's as if you've spent your whole life trying to build a sandcastle on the beach, and suddenly, a large wave comes and washes it all away. Your first reaction is despair. My castle, all my work. But then you notice something extraordinary. When the castle disappears, you see the beach, the infinite beach, vast, beautiful, that has always been there, but that you couldn't see because you were obsessed with your sandcastle, your mental identity, your plans, your worries, your fears. All of that is the sandcastle, and depression is the wave that washes it all away. The initial despair is natural, but if you allow it, if you don't try to rebuild the castle immediately, you will discover something far more valuable than any mental construct. You will discover the beach of your true nature, vast, silent, unperturbable. And once you discover this beach, once you remember who you really are, life becomes completely different. Not because external circumstances necessarily change, but because you no longer need them to be happy. You carry the source of peace within you. You carry the source of joy within you. You carry the source of love within you. And this source can never run dry, because it doesn't depend on anything external. It is what you are. But now comes the question that really matters. How do you access this source in practice? How do you reconnect with this true nature when you're in the midst of an emotional storm? Eckhart discovered that there are three main portals to this reconnection, three simple yet revolutionary practices that can bring you back home whenever you get lost in the mazes of the mind. The first portal is what he calls the power of now. Stop for a moment and notice, where are all your problems? In the past or the future? Always. You never have a problem in the present moment. In the now, you only have situations to deal with or sensations to feel. Your mind may be creating a problem about what's happening now, but the problem itself is always mental, always temporal. When you anchor yourself in the present moment, when you bring all your attention to what is happening here and now, the problematic mind cannot operate. It runs out of fuel. And how do you anchor yourself in the present? Through your body. Your body is always in the now. It's never in the past or the future. When you bring your attention to bodily sensations, you automatically leave the mind and enter the present. Right now, feel your feet touching the ground. Feel the air entering your lungs. Feel your heartbeat. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. See, at this very moment, breathing, feeling your body, you are not depressed. You simply are. You exist. You are present. Depression only exists when you leave the now and get lost in thoughts about the past or the future. It cannot exist in the pure present moment. The second portal is what Eckhart calls radical acceptance. Have you ever tried to change a situation by fighting against it? Have you ever tried to stop feeling sad by forcing yourself to be happy? Have you ever tried to solve a problem by obsessively worrying about it? How did it work? Probably not very well. Mental resistance is like trying to stop a river by building a dam with your hands. The water simply finds another way, and, in the process, you completely exhaust yourself. Radical acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean you like what's happening. It means stopping wasting energy, fighting against what is already reality. It's saying, okay, sadness, you're here. I don't know why you came, I don't know when you'll leave, but you're here now. Just let it be. And something miraculous happens when you do. The emotion, finding no resistance, begins to move naturally, like water flowing freely instead of being dammed up. Have you ever noticed how difficult it is to hold a beach ball underwater? The harder you try to keep it submerged, the more it wants to rise to the surface. And the moment you let go, it emerges naturally. Your emotions are like that beach ball. The more you try to suppress them, the more they push to emerge. But when you accept them, when you stop trying to keep them submerged, they come to the surface and naturally dissipate. There's a powerful practice Eckhart Tolle teaches for this. When a difficult emotion arises, instead of trying to change it, ask it, what do you want to teach me? Don't look for a mental answer. Just hold the question as an opening, as an invitation for the wisdom of the emotion to reveal itself. Often you'll discover that sadness wants to teach you about compassion. Anger wants to teach you about boundaries. Fear wants to teach you about care. Anxiety wants to teach you about presence. Each emotion carries a wisdom, but you only access that wisdom when you stop fighting the emotion and begin to dialogue with it. The third portal is what Eckhart Tolle calls non-judgmental observation. Have you noticed how your mind is like a sports commentator that never stops talking? It comments on everything that happens, judges everything you feel, analyzes everything you think. You shouldn't be feeling this way. Others have worse problems than yours. You're weak for not being able to handle this. You should be better by now. This internal commentator is relentless. And the more you listen to it, the more you identify with it, the more you believe it is you. But what if you could step back and simply observe this commentator? What if you could see it as just another mental phenomenon, like a cloud passing across the sky of your consciousness? There's a simple practice for this. Whenever you catch your mind judging, criticizing, or dramatizing, simply say internally, thinking. Don't try to stop the thought. Don't judge the judgment. Just acknowledge, the mind is thinking again. It's as if you were a detective observing a suspect. You don't get emotionally involved. You just observe and note, suspect is doing this, suspect is doing that. When you do this with your thoughts, something extraordinary happens. You begin to realize that there's a space between you and your thoughts. You are not the thought. You are the one who observes the thought. And in that space, in that healthy distance between you and your mind, there is freedom. You can choose which thoughts to focus on. You can choose which emotions to nourish. You can choose how to respond to life situations. You cease being a victim of your mental states and become the conscious director of your experience. But here's something important. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's like learning to play an instrument. In the beginning, you have to struggle to remember to put your fingers in the right position, but with practice it becomes natural. In the beginning, you'll forget to anchor yourself in the present. You'll forget to accept what you're feeling. You'll identify again with the voice of your mind, and that's okay, it's part of the process. The important thing is not to never forget. The important thing is to remember to remember. It's to return home whenever you realize you've gotten lost. And each time you return, each time you reconnect with who you really are, you strengthen that muscle of consciousness. You become more familiar with your true nature. There's a beautiful metaphor Eckhart Tolle uses for this. Imagine that you are like the sun, and your thoughts and emotions are like clouds in the sky. When you identify with the clouds, when you believe that you are them, you completely forget about the sun. You might even think that the sun has disappeared forever, but the sun never disappears. It's always there, radiant, luminous, warming everything around it. The clouds may cover it temporarily, but they can never extinguish it. And when you remember that you are the sun, when you reconnect with your truly luminous nature, you realize that the clouds are no longer a problem. They are just temporary phenomena that come and go. You might even appreciate the beauty of the clouds, the variety of their shapes, the dance they do in the sky, but you never forget that you are the sun. Now you might be wondering, but what about others? What about the people around me who are still identified with the clouds? How do I deal with that? Here's another profound revelation. When you awaken to who you really are, when you connect with your essence, you automatically become a healing presence in the world. Not because you try to heal others, but because your presence, your awakened presence, reminds others of who they really are too. It's like lighting a candle in a dark room. The candle doesn't strive to illuminate the room. It simply shines, and its light naturally dissipates the darkness. When you are anchored in your true nature, when you are present and at peace with yourself, you become that lit candle. You become a living reminder to others that there is a different way of being. And this can transform not only your life, but the lives of the people around you. Because peace is contagious. Presence is contagious. Love is contagious. But it all starts with you. It all starts with your decision to stop looking for happiness outside of yourself and begin to recognize the peace that already exists within you. Eckhart Tolle discovered that we are not human beings trying to have a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And when you remember this, when you reconnect with your spiritual nature, the human experience becomes much lighter, much more joyful, much more meaningful. Problems don't necessarily disappear, but you no longer identify with them. They become just situations to navigate with wisdom and compassion. Difficult emotions don't necessarily stop arising, but you no longer fear them. They become teachers that teach you about the depth of the human experience. Others don't necessarily change, but you no longer need them to change for you to be happy. You find peace in the radical acceptance of what is. And in that peace, in that acceptance, in that connection with who you truly are, you discover something extraordinary. What you always sought outside of yourself was always inside you. The happiness you sought in external achievements was always your essential nature. The love you sought in other people was always the love that you are. The peace you've been searching for in perfect circumstances always was the peace of your true nature. You don't need to become enlightened. You already are the light. You don't need to find peace. You already are peace. And you don't need to seek love, and you already are love. You just needed to remember, and this remembering, this awakening, often begins in the darkest moments, when everything seems to have fallen apart, when you can no longer maintain the masks, when life forces you to stop and question everything. These moments, which we call depression, can be the most sacred moments of your existence, because they are the moments when you are forced to go deeper, to question the superficial layers of identity, to seek something more real, more true. It's as if you've spent your whole life living on the first floor of a house, thinking that was all the space available, and suddenly life forces you down into the basement. At first, the basement seems terrifying, dark, unknown. You just want to go back to the first floor, to what's familiar. But if you have the courage to explore the basement, to familiarize yourself with this unfamiliar territory, you discover something incredible. There's a secret staircase leading to the upper floors. Floors you didn't even know existed. Floors with much wider views and with much more light, with much more room to breathe. Depression is the forced descent into the basement. But if you don't run from it, if you courageously explore this territory, you discover the secret staircase. And this staircase takes you not only back to the first floor, but far beyond. It takes you to a perspective on life you never imagined possible. A perspective where you no longer depend on external circumstances to be happy, where you no longer depend on the opinions of others to feel valuable, where you no longer depend on the future to have hope, because you've discovered that you carry within yourself everything you've ever sought. And this discovery isn't theoretical, it's not philosophical, it's visceral, it's experiential. It's a memory so deep that it resonates in every cell of your body. It's the remembrance of who you always were, before you learned to be someone else, before accumulating all the layers of conditioning, before forgetting your true nature. It's the remembrance of the child you were before you learned you needed to be someone to be loved. It's the remembrance of the peace you felt before you learned you needed to achieve things to be happy. It's the remembrance of the wholeness you experienced before you learned you were incomplete. That child never disappeared. That peace was never lost. That wholeness was never shaken. It was always there, patiently waiting for you to stop searching outside and come home. And the key to coming home is in your hands, right now. It doesn't matter how long you've felt lost. It doesn't matter how many diagnoses you've received. It doesn't matter how many people have told you that you are sick. Your soul is calling you back. Your true essence is whispering your name. Your luminous nature is waiting to be recognized. You just need to stop running, stop searching, stop trying to fix yourself, and start remembering who you really are, beneath all the thoughts, beneath all the emotions, beneath all the stories you tell yourself. You are peace, you are love, you are wholeness. And this isn't a belief, it's not a hope, it's not a pretty spiritual theory. It's the most fundamental truth about you, a truth that no depression can erase, a truth that no diagnosis can change, a truth that no external circumstance can shake, because it doesn't depend on anything external. It is what you are. And when you remember this, when you reconnect with this truth, you finally understand what your soul has been trying to tell you all this time. It wasn't calling you to illness, it was calling you home. Welcome back.